Picture this. You're a hard-working Roman living along the empire's northern frontier. You've got a nice villa, some decent farmland, and you've just about mastered the art of ignoring tax collectors. Life is tough but manageable. That is, until one fateful morning, when you hear something that makes your blood run cold, the sound of war horns. You climb your villa's roof, because, of course, Roman houses had flat roofs, perfect for spying on the neighbors. And what do you see? A sea of bearded, axe-wielding warriors charging towards you. The Alamanni have arrived. Suddenly, your biggest worry isn't taxes anymore. It's survival. This was the terrifying reality for thousands of Romans living on the empire's frontier in the 3rd and 4th centuries CE. The Alamannifious Germanic warriors who thought walls were merely suggestions and Roman defenses were just slightly more complicated speed bumps came crashing into the empire, time and again, turning once thriving settlements into smoldering ruins. But this wasn't just a story of destruction. It was a tale of adaptation, resilience, and occasionally some truly impressive Roman stubbornness. So what happened when the Alamanni decided to turn the Roman frontier into their personal playground? Buckle up, because this is a tale of betrayal, battles, and the kind of cultural exchange that usually involves a lot of swords. First, let's talk about our uninvited guests. The Alamanni weren't just some random band of troublemakers. They were a confederation of Germanic tribes who had grown tired of the whole Romans telling us what to do thing. For centuries, Rome had played a risky game of bribing, bullying, and occasionally befriending its Germanic neighbors. But by the 3rd century, the Alamanni had had enough. They wanted land, they wanted power, and most importantly, they wanted all the Roman loot they could carry. Rome, naturally, wasn't thrilled. The empire had spent centuries building up its northern frontier, known as the Limes, a series of forts, walls, and watchtowers meant to keep out the riffraff. But as it turned out, no wall is truly unbreakable when enough angry warriors with a vendetta show up. The first major Alamanni invasion came in 213 CE, when they tested the waters by poking around the Roman defenses in modern-day Germany. Emperor Caracalla, known for his charming personality, by which we mean he had his own brother murdered, marched north to deal with them. He won a battle and celebrated as if he had single-handedly saved Rome. The Alamanni, meanwhile, shrugged and decided to come back later with more friends. Fast forward a few decades, and things really start to get spicy. In 260 CE, the Romans got a wee bit distracted when Emperor Valerian was captured by the Persians, captured, as in turned into a human footstool. Seeing an opportunity, the Alamanni swarmed over the frontier like a plague of particularly aggressive locusts, sacking cities and generally making a mess of things. They even reached Italy because why stop at just annoying the provinces when you can terrify the capital? Romans in the frontier provinces were now facing a serious dilemma. Do they fight, flee, or try to blend in by wearing animal pelts and speaking in deep, guttural Germanic tones? Spoiler, the last option rarely worked. For those who stayed behind, life became a game of survival. Roman towns along the Rhine and Danube rivers had to be fortified or abandoned. Villas, once symbols of Roman luxury, were either looted or turned into mini-fortresses. Some Romans tried to make peace with their new Alamanni neighbors, offering bribes, alliances, or even joining them in raids against other Romans. Hey, loyalty is flexible when your life depends on it. Others, however, held out with classic Roman stubbornness. Frontier garrisons became even more militarized and some communities resorted to guerrilla tactics because if you can't beat the Alamanni in open battle, at least you can make them trip over some cleverly placed pitfalls. Rome wasn't about to let the Alamanni turn its northern provinces into an early medieval free-for-all. Emperors like Aurelian, Probus, and Diocletian took turns trying to push them back. But it was a never-ending game of whack-a-barbarian. And then came Julian the Apostate, Rome's last great pagan emperor, and a guy who probably had Barbarian Slayer on his business card. In 357 CE, at the Battle of Strasbourg, Julian led his outnumbered legions to a stunning victory against a massive Alamanni force. The Romans cheered. The Alamanni were temporarily stunned, and historians got another epic battle to write about. But while Julian's victory was impressive, it didn't stop the larger problem. The frontier was still vulnerable, and the Alamanni weren't going anywhere. In fact, they would continue raiding and pillaging well into the 5th century, right up until Rome itself fell to another group of Germanic invaders, the Visigoths. History has a way of repeating itself, and the Alamanni invasions offer a few solid takeaways. 1. Walls only work if you can defend them. The Romans had an impressive frontier system, but without the troops and resources to hold it, those defenses were about as useful as a wet toga in a snowstorm. 2. Cultural exchange isn't always peaceful. While trade and diplomacy shaped Roman-Germanic relations, so did battle axes and war cries. 3. Never underestimate the underdog. Rome was the superpower of the ancient world, but the Alamanni scrappy, determined and constantly underestimated, proved to be a force to be reckoned with. If there's one lesson to take away, it's that no empire lasts forever. The Alamanni may have been thorns in Rome's side, but in the grand scheme of things they were just one of many pressures that helped bring down the mighty empire. So what happened to the Alamanni? Did they disappear into the mist like a group of misunderstood villains in a tragic historical drama? Not quite. The descendants of the Alamanni eventually settled in what is now southern Germany and Switzerland, lending their name to modern-day Alemania, the Spanish and French word for Germany. Yep, next time you hear someone refer to Germany as Alemania, you can thank these rowdy invaders. Ironically, many Alamanni later joined the very empire they had once terrorized. By the time the Western Roman Empire collapsed in 476 CE, Alamanni warriors were serving as Roman soldiers, generals, and even high-ranking officials. It turns out, when you can't beat them, sometimes you become them. And so, the Alamanni left their mark not just as fierce raiders, but as part of the ever-evolving, chaotic, and often hilarious history of Rome. So next time you think about ancient Rome, remember, it wasn't just marble columns, gladiators, and emperors in fancy togas. Sometimes it was also about a bunch of bearded warriors showing up uninvited and teaching Rome a lesson in humility.